I still remember the sound of her laughter, not the warm, comforting kind, but the cold, dismissive chuckle that echoed through the corridor when I was at my lowest. That laugh? It carved itself into my memory like a scar. And the worst part? Came from the woman I loved. My name is Ayan. I'm 29, a quiet kind of guy. More observant than loud, more patient than impulsive. I've always believed in the kind of love that grows slowly but runs deep. And I believed I'd found it in Alina. Alina was everything I wasn't. Bold, magnetic, the center of every room she entered. Her smile had this way of disarming people, and her confidence made others lean in. We met during grad school. I was the shy guy with a passion for writing. She was the outspoken marketing student who could pitch ice to the Arctic. Somehow we clicked. I fell hard. For years I thought she felt the same. But I guess love doesn't always look the same from both sides. It happened on a rainy Tuesday, fitting I suppose. We had an argument the night before. Something small that turned into something bigger, as things often do when resentment is quietly growing. I hadn't heard from her all day, and against my better judgment, I showed up at her workplace with flowers in one hand and an apology rehearsed a dozen times in my head. That's when I saw her, with him. The guy I always had a feeling about. The one she said was just a friend. She was laughing at something he said, and when she caught sight of me, standing there soaked and humiliated, she didn't flinch. She didn't even look guilty. She just smirked, turned to him and said loud enough for me to hear. See? He always cries like that when things don't go his way. That laugh, it broke me. I left obviously. There was no scene, no confrontation. I didn't throw the flowers. I didn't shout. I just walked. For hours. Through the city, through my thoughts, through every memory I had of her. That night changed everything. But here's the thing about pain, it teaches. It transforms. I didn't become bitter. I didn't chase closure. Instead, I focused on myself. I poured everything into my work, started a small publishing company, and finally published my first novel. Success didn't make the hurt disappear, but it gave me something stronger. Purpose. And then, as life always does when you least expect it, it brought her back. It was at a book signing 3 years later. I was the guest speaker. She was in the audience. Her eyes were different, tired, like they'd seen too much too fast. She waited until everyone else had gone before walking up to me. I was expecting a bitter apology or worse, another joke at my expense. But her voice cracked as she said my name. Ayan. I looked at her. For the first time, she wasn't the woman who laughed at my tears. She was the one holding back her own. I didn't say a word. I just looked at her. And that's when she whispered, I lost everything. And now I finally understand what you felt. She wasn't smiling. And for the first time in years, neither was I. The bookstore was quiet now. Just the faint hum of overhead lights and the scent of fresh paper lingering in the air. A few copies of my novel sat neatly stacked beside me, but I couldn't look at them. Not with her standing there, 3 years too late and heartbreaks too deep. Alina looked like a shadow of the woman I once knew. Her perfectly kept hair now fell loosely over her shoulders, her makeup was minimal and her voice, always so firm, shook when she said my name. Ayan. Can we talk? I didn't answer right away. I didn't trust my own voice. Part of me wanted to walk away. Another part wanted to listen. We sat at a table in the corner, away from the world. Just the two of us like it used to be. But nothing was like it used to be. Before you say anything, she began, I'm not here to defend what I did. I need to explain. I nodded, cautious. Years of silence had trained me not to hope. Still I listened. Alina took a breath. After you walked away that day, I told myself I didn't care. That it wasn't real. You were too sensitive. Too intense. I convinced myself I was right. She paused, her fingers trembling slightly. But I wasn't right. I was scared. That caught me off guard. Scared? She was the fearless one. Always sure, always ahead. What could she have possibly feared? I didn't know how to handle someone who actually loved me without conditions. You never asked me to be perfect. You saw me when I was still figuring myself out, and that terrified me. I looked at her, trying to read between the lines. She continued, her voice lower. I thought I wanted someone exciting, spontaneous. Someone who didn't make me confront myself. So I ran straight into chaos. And it ruined me. The guy from before Rayhan, he didn't last. According to mutual friends, their so-called passion burned out quickly. He left after a year, and she was left picking up the pieces. But this wasn't about revenge. That's not what this was. It was about recognition. Realizing that the person who once stood in front of her with tears in his eyes had meant everything she didn't understand back then. I saw your name on the author list a few months ago, she said quietly. I didn't know how to reach you. I came tonight hoping I could just see you, tell you I'm sorry. I wanted to feel anger, bitterness, something sharp to protect me, but instead I just felt tired. Why now? I asked. She looked straight at me. Because I finally felt the weight of losing you. And now I understand what I broke. There was a silence between us. Heavy but not hostile. Honest. I stood up slowly. You hurt me, Alina. More than I thought possible. But I'm not the same man you left behind. And I don't think you're the same woman either. She looked down, nodding. I'm not. I didn't promise anything. No second chances.
No dramatic reconciliation.
But something unspoken passed between us, an understanding that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end. Maybe this was the real beginning. The days that followed Alina's reappearance were a storm beneath the surface. Outwardly, my life remained unchanged, meetings, deadlines, book events, but internally I was back in unfamiliar territory, emotionally exposed, unsure of where to place my feelings. She hadn't asked for anything, but her eyes had, quietly, painfully, pleaded for a second chance. And I didn't know if I had it in me. My best friend and business partner, Zara, noticed the shift before I even said a word. You've been weird since the signing, she said one afternoon, sipping her espresso while skimming through edits. Don't tell me she showed up. I looked up surprised. How did you know? She always shows up when you're doing well, she said sharply. Like clockwork. Zara had always been protective of me. We started our publishing company from scratch. Built every milestone with late nights and quiet sacrifices. She was the one who saw me through the worst of the heartbreak. When Alina left, when I questioned my worth, when I almost gave up on love altogether. Now her jaw tightened. Did she say sorry? I nodded. Yeah. She said she finally understood what she lost. And you? She asked, folding her arms. Do you want to forgive her? Or do you just want the version of her you built in your head 3 years ago? That question haunted me, because the truth was, the Alina I remembered and the Alina standing in front of me weren't the same. One was bold to a fault. The other was broken but real. But did broken mean better? Or just different? To make things more complicated, Zara had always been a constant in my life. But recently, the way she looked at me had changed. Her concern had grown softer. Her support more personal. There were moments, subtle but telling, where her voice lingered a second too long when saying my name. Moments I never noticed, until now. Alina, sensing something too, called me late one evening. Is there someone else? She asked, her voice fragile. I don't know, I replied honestly. There's someone who's always been there. And I'm only now realizing what that might mean. Silence followed. Then she said, if I hadn't hurt you, would you have seen her? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. Later that week, Zara and I met a potential investor for our next big expansion. It was supposed to be a proud moment, but even during the meeting, my thoughts kept flickering to Alina's voice, her apology, her eyes holding back a storm. Afterward, Zara caught me staring out the window, absent-mindedly turning my phone over in my hands. She's not the girl you loved, she said softly beside me. She's just the one who taught you how deep you can love. I looked at her, really looked at her, and in that second, something shifted. But just as I was about to speak, my phone buzzed. A message from Alina. Please meet me tomorrow. There's something I need to tell you before I disappear again. One last time. My heart sank. One last time? What was she planning? I stared at the screen, caught between two lives. One marked by pain and nostalgia. The other, standing silently beside me, waiting for me to see her fully, for the first time. The rain was coming down hard again. As if the sky knew we were about to unravel something we couldn't undo. I sat in my car outside the old cafe, where Alina had asked me to meet her. Same place where we had our first real date, years ago. Same corner table. Same soft jazz in the background. But nothing else felt the same. I walked in and there she was. Alina, drenched from the rain, hair pulled back. No makeup, her vulnerability visible like an open wound. Her hands were wrapped around a coffee mug she hadn't touched. Her eyes, those eyes, met mine and for a second everything inside me went still. She stood slowly. You came. I said I would. She motioned to the seat across from her. Please. Seat. Iset. The silence between us felt alive, full of words unsaid. Full of pain neither of us knew how to name. I don't have long, she said suddenly. I've accepted a job overseas. I leave in 3 days. That hit harder than I expected. You weren't going to tell me? I didn't think I needed to. But then I saw you again. And I knew I couldn't leave without saying this. I leaned back tense. Then say it. She looked down and for the first time since we reconnected she cried. But not the quiet, graceful kind. It was raw, ugly in the way truth often is. I didn't come back hoping to get you back, she choked. I came back because I needed you to know that you were the only thing in my life that was ever real. I destroyed it because I didn't know how to be loved without feeling like I had to earn it. I pushed you away because I couldn't believe you stayed, even after I made you bleed. She reached into her bag and pulled out something. A worn notebook. My old one. I found this when I was packing. Your writing. The pages I used to tease you about. She held it out. I read every word. You wrote about me like I was a miracle. And I never saw it until now. I stared at the notebook. Pages stained with ink and heartbreak. Stories that once meant everything. Now they were just echoes. I'm not asking for a second chance, she whispered. I just needed you to know I've changed. And I'm sorry. For all of it. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to forgive. But some part of me, a quieter, wiser part, knew that no apology could undo what had been done. That's when Zara called. I ignored it. Then came a second buzz. Emergency at the office. Call me back ASAP. I stood. Alina looked panicked. Is everything okay? I don't know, I said honestly. I have to go. She nodded, but her lips trembled. This is it then? I hesitated. Maybe. Or maybe it's just the pause before everything changes. Her tears fell again, silently this time. I turned and walked out. Into the storm, into the unknown. And as I drove toward the office, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was heading toward something even more complicated. Something that might finally force me to choose. Because Zara never called twice unless it was serious. And I had the sinking feeling. This wasn't about work. I didn't sleep that night. Alina's message replayed in my head on a loop. Rayhan came to my apartment. He said you'd regret walking away from me again. Ayaan, be careful. What did that even mean? Regret how? I stared at the city lights from my apartment window, my thoughts spiraling. First the deal with Zara. Now this. It felt like everything around me was connected by strings I didn't pull. But somehow, I was still tangled in them. The next morning, I went back to the office early. I needed space. I needed to think. Zara hadn't messaged since our fight. I didn't know what hurt more. Her signing that deal or the fact that she did it behind my back, thinking I'd fall apart without her protection. And now Rayhan, who had already played us once, had access to everything. My inbox was overflowing, but one email caught my attention. A forwarded thread from our attorney labeled, Urgent, clauses you need to see. I opened it. And then the real twist hit me like a punch to the chest. Clause 47. In the event of managerial conflict or incapacitation, executive control transfers to the secondary founder, Zara Malik. I stared at the words, my pulse pounding. Zara didn't just sign the deal. She signed it knowing that if things got complicated, she would take control. Was this always her plan? No, it couldn't be. But doubt crept in like poison. I picked up my phone, hesitating, until I got a second shock. A missed call. From Alina. Followed by a voice note. Played it. Ayaan. I didn't know who else to tell. Rayhan didn't just come to my place. He threatened me. Said he's going to expose everything. I don't know what he meant, but he mentioned Zara. He said she's not who you think. My blood ran cold. Now the pattern was unmistakable. Rayhan was playing both sides. But the worst part? Zara might have let him. I rushed to her apartment, heart racing. When she opened the door, she didn't look surprised to see me. Just tired. You read it, didn't you? She asked quietly. You gave yourself full control. I didn't mean for it to be like this, she said. Rayhan made an offer I thought would save us. I panicked. I didn't know what he'd do next. Then why didn't you tell me? Her voice cracked. Because I was scared you'd choose her again. And I couldn't watch you fall for her lies, while everything we built burned. I froze. So this was about Alina?
No.
It was about you, she whispered. I loved you long before she ever did. But you never looked at me that way. My breath caught. There it was. The real twist. Not just business. Not just betrayal. Love. Complicated, buried, and now exploding at the worst possible time. Zara. I started, but I couldn't finish. Because everything had changed. Rayhan was out for revenge. Alina was terrified. And now the one person I thought I could count on was standing in front of me, heart on her sleeve with power in her hands and love in her voice. And I didn't know who I was supposed to protect or trust. I stood between two women, one who had broken me once, and one who had quietly been my strength all along, and I still didn't know which of them I trusted anymore. But what I did know was this. Rayhan wasn't playing a game. He was executing a plan. I spent the next day pulling every record I could find. Zara's contract. Rayhan's company documents. I even went through old files from grad school, where Rayhan and I first crossed paths. It was there buried in an old project folder that I found the final piece of the puzzle. Rayhan had always wanted this company, but not to support it, to own it. Years ago, he pitched a similar startup idea to the same investors I eventually landed. He failed. I didn't. That wasn't a coincidence. That was a grudge. And now? He was trying to finish what he started by using the people closest to me. I called Alina. I need you to meet me, I said. This time we end this together. We met at the same cafe as before. But now she wasn't trembling. She was ready. I recorded the conversation with Rayhan, she said, sliding her phone across the table. He told me everything. That he manipulated Zara. That he used me as bait to distract you. That he still thinks he can ruin you. I took the phone, stunned. Why are you helping me now? She looked straight into my eyes. Because I broke you once. And I'm not going to let someone else destroy what's left. We filed a legal injunction that night. I sent the recording straight to our lawyer and to Zara. 2 hours later, she showed up at my apartment, her face pale, eyes rimmed red. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear, Ayaan, I didn't know he hated you that much. I thought I was protecting us. I believe you, I said softly. But you gave him the power. And I had to clean it up. Tears welled in her eyes. So what happens now? And here it was. The breaking point. Not for business. For us. I stepped forward. I trusted you with everything, I said. And I don't know if I can rebuild that. But I don't hate you. Zara nodded slowly, swallowing her grief. I just needed to hear that. And she turned and left. I didn't stop her. Some wounds need space to heal. The injunction forced Rayhan out of the company. We renegotiated the contract, this time with full transparency. It was done. The storm was over. A week later, I sat across from Alina again. You saved me from him, I said. But that doesn't erase the past. She nodded. I'm not here to pretend it does. I don't know if I can be with you again, I continued, my voice low. But I also don't want to keep punishing a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. Alina reached across the table, fingers grazing mine. I'm not asking for forever, she whispered. I'm just asking for now. I looked at her hand, then into her eyes. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was choosing wrong. Maybe we weren't the same people anymore. Maybe that's why this time we had a chance. I never thought peace could feel like this. Quiet, soft, almost invisible if you weren't paying attention. But that's what healing is. It doesn't arrive with fireworks. It slips in like morning light after a stormy night. Alina and I didn't rush anything. We didn't call it a relationship. We didn't make promises. We met for coffee. We talked about life, mistakes, who we used to be. There were still cracks between us, but for once, we didn't try to cover them up. We let the light in through them. And that made all the difference. Zara took time off, said she needed space to figure out what she wanted, who she was without the business, without me. I respected that. We met one last time before she left for a long trip abroad. There were no hard feelings. Just a quiet kind of closure. I hope you find someone who looks at you the way I always did, she said, smiling through misty eyes. I already did, I replied softly. You just weren't supposed to be her. We hugged. Not the kind of hug that says, maybe someday, but the kind that says thank you for the chapter we shared. As for Rayhan, his hold over our company ended quickly. The court ruled in our favor. His manipulations were exposed, his influence cut off. For once, Karma didn't need help finding the right address. The company moved forward, stronger than before. I kept Zara's name on the masthead, out of respect for what we built together. She earned that. And me? I kept writing. But this time, the stories came from a different place. Not heartbreak or revenge, but reflection. Love, I learned, isn't about who gets the last word. It's about who stays when the silence is loudest. One evening, Alina and I walked along the same street where she once laughed at my tears. She stopped suddenly, eyes on the spot where it all broke. I see it differently now, she whispered. I didn't understand then, but I do now. I nodded. So do I. She reached for my hand, and this time I didn't pull away. Because sometimes the people who hurt us are the same people who teach us how deep we can feel, and how far we can grow. And sometimes if they grow too, love gets a second chance. Not because it deserves one, but because we choose it.